I know a lot of what I was talking about on the way here didn't come through. So if you take a look on your screen, you see that's the historical marker for Black Bottom. Black Bottom, acre for acre, is the most historically rich, culturally significant area in the state of Michigan's history. It is where most African Americans who left the South and came to Detroit, most of them ended up in Black Bottom, at least until World War II. So from 1914, when Henry Ford offered $5 a day, until World War II, most black people who ended up in Detroit were in Black Bottom. Again, it was overcrowded. It had housing for 30,000 people, but it's 140,000 people living there at its height. The reason why black people can live there is because black people have been living there since the 1700s. So you can't say black people can't live there and they're already there. So that's why many of those Underground Railroad leaders, they all lived in Black Bottom. They built the first black schools, the first black churches, the first black business in Detroit. They were all in Black Bottom. And so that small black community would be met with a larger influx of African Americans during the Great Migration. And Joe Louis, his family moved there from Alabama. Coleman Young, his family moved here from Alabama. Coleman Young, of course, will grow up and become the leader of the National Negro Labor Council, which the federal government will label a communist organization. He'll go into World War II and become a Tuskegee Airman. He will be one of the leaders of the Freeman Field Mutiny, which is when African American soldiers in 1944 all began going to the White Officers Club. So it was an officers club. There were black officers who weren't allowed to go there. Black officers just started going into the club. They got arrested, thrown in the brig, or thrown into the military detention. And then another group of black officers came and did it, and then they got arrested and put into the military detention. Then another group of black officers came. This was called the Freeman Field Mutiny, and he was one of the leaders of it. He wasn't able to participate because he was already in the military detention when it happened. And then of course after that, he'll become a state senator and become the first black mayor of the city of Detroit and the longest serving mayor in Detroit's history. Mayor Coleman Alexander Young. And Ralph Bunche, of course, the first African American to get the Nobel Peace Prize. And when he won it, he was the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He was the first person who wasn't white to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He also lived in Black Bottom. The first Michigan Colored Regiment, of course, during the Civil War, in January 1st, 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And of course, it only applied to the South, which means that the Union soldiers would have to invade an area for black people to get free. Black people had to run away to where Union Army were to get free. That's why we have a Juneteenth. The reason Juneteenth exists is because Union soldiers don't make it to southern Texas until June 19th, 1865. So the other part of the Emancipation Proclamation is that now free African Americans, free black people, can join the Union Army. And almost 200,000 black soldiers joined the Union Army. They joined the Union Army not for what Lincoln wants them to join for. Lincoln is fighting one war, and black people are fighting a whole different war. Lincoln is fighting a war to bring the country back together again. He is trying to restore the Union. He's trying to bring the United States back together as one country. These black people who joined the Union Army don't care nothing about Mississippi joining the United States again. That is not why they joined. They are joining because they feel that this is Nat Turner's rebellion if he had an army. This is John Brown's raid if he had an army. They're joining for the fight for freedom. They're joining because they say, hold on, Mr. Lincoln, let me get this right. You gonna give me a gun? You gonna let me go down south and fight the people that raped my mama? Oh, I'm joining this war. Let me get this right, Mr. Lincoln. You gonna give me a gun? You gonna give me a uniform? And you gonna pay me to go down south and fight the people who sold my children away from me? Oh, I'm joining this war. People have escaped on the Underground Railroad. They're living in Canada, free. They leave freedom in Canada, come back to the United States to join the Union Army and fight in this war. It's not talked about enough how that changed the course of the Civil War. Because these black people are not drafted. There's a draft in the North, not black people. North is not drafting black people. There's a draft in the South, and the South sure ain't drafting black people. Because the South knows that if they give a gun to a black person, way before they get to any Union soldiers, they'd be shooting. So the South is not drafting black people, the North is not drafting black people, but black people volunteer. Harriet Tubman volunteers. She joins the Union Army. She's a soldier, a scout, and a spy. She frees more people during the Civil War than she did the 13 times she went back and forth between the South and the North, helping people escape on the Underground Railroad. She frees more people in the Union Army in one raid than she did all those other years in the Underground Railroad. This is what black people are fighting for. They're fighting because they know once they get guns, once they fight and kill for freedom, nobody's going to be able to enslave them again. So that's what they're fighting for. That's Elmwood Cemetery up there. Elmwood Cemetery is the oldest non-denominational. The early cemeteries in Detroit, you had to belong to that church. So there's a Catholic cemetery first, and you had to be a Catholic. There's a Presbyterian cemetery. Of course, you had to be a Presbyterian. And then you had a number of cemeteries like that. But this one is a non-denominational. So you could be of any denomination or of no denomination. It's fully integrated, which means black people and white people are buried right next to one another. Some cemeteries call themselves integrated, but they'll have black people on one side of the cemetery and white people on the other side of the cemetery, and they'll say that's integrated. But in this one, there's black people buried right next to whites, and many of the leaders of the Underground Railroad are buried in Elmwood, and 17 members of the 102nd United States Colored Troops are buried there, and so you're seeing some of them. In an earlier visit of Footsteps to Freedom, we went there, and the Footsteps to Freedom group had to find the 17 veterans of the 102nd United States Colored Troops who fought in the Civil War. Altogether, there were 1,446 members of the United States Colored Troops. I'm sorry, 102nd United States Colored Troops. So look at the names. There's one right there. Look at that guy. Have you seen that name before? That's Daniel Walker. All right, that was my fault. We missed our turn. That was my fault. I was talking. So we're going to go a little further down.
White Castle? What?
We missed our turn.
Wait, is he related to this?
No, he's not. He just has the same name, so we always mess around about that. So there's Jacob Howard up. Jacob Howard, we're going to take this to, I think what's the best way to take this. What's that turn? If we could get over.
You want to turn right?
Yeah, we could get over, not turn right, turn left. If we could get over and turn left.
Right here?
Yep, right here. If we could turn left here, that would be good. I'm gonna tell about that in a minute. I want to get this turn good. I'm gonna take this to Livernois. When you get to Livernois, make a left. We're gonna get on a freeway down in Livernois. All right, so Senator Jacob Howard is sitting up there. He's buried in Elmwood Cemetery. He's the co-author of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. He's a radical Republican. The Republican Party was founded by radical Republicans. They were abolitionists, some of whom were supporters of the Underground Railroad, including this man, Senator Jacob Howard, here in the city of Detroit. He's a Michigan senator, lived in Detroit, lived not far from Black Bottom. He's a radical Republican. The Republican Party, again, was founded. A number of Detroiters were a part of the founding, and they were Underground Railroad abolitionists. And Senator Jacob Howard is one of them. by the time we get to 1860, of course, the party is no longer run by the radicals. It's run by moderates. And Abraham Lincoln is a moderate. He's not a radical Republican. He's not an abolitionist. At least not in 1860, he's not. And so they will take control over Congress, though, during the Civil War. Once the Civil War starts, the majority of Congress are Republicans, and the majority of those Republicans are radical Republicans. And Senator Jacob Howard will be the co-author of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. When he died, he said he wanted the 13th Amendment on his tomb monument. So it's on there. It's on the front of it. You go back to that last slide. That's it. I know it's hard to see. That's the 13th Amendment in there. He's a co-author. And he said that he wants that on there. And if everybody is free when he dies, that there's no slavery, even slavery perpetrating like it's not slavery. If that don't exist, if it's really freedom, then he wants his monument to be a tall obelisk like his friend, who's also buried in Elmwood Cemetery, Zachariah Chandler, another radical Republican and founder of the Republican Party. But he said if there's still some slavery going on, whether they hiding it and calling it something else, then he wants his monument to be broken. He wants his obelisk to be broken. His obelisk is broken, which means you're gonna make a right. Yeah, you gotta do the Michigan.
Right.
You gotta make a right and then go around the island. So go make a right and get over to your left lane. So you can, yeah, that Michigan left. Yeah. So Detroit Association of Women Club only makes sense if you got the doorway where they. You can do Fannie Richards if you find Fannie. This is too. It's too close. Because I know these rough. I hate this different doorway. In my car, it's hard for me to make that flip. So I'm in a car.
Daddy Stevens.
Yeah, they're radical Republicans like Thaddeus Stevens. Yeah. And Charles Sumner. Yeah. They're all friends. All of those are friends. Charles Sumner. Yep.
Let me see what you can do with this here bus. Yeah, we got it. We got it.
Zachariah Chandler is one of the. Zachariah Chandler, Bingham co-wrote the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. So that's when Ohio and Michigan got along.
Whip it and dip it.
Ohio and Michigan.
Let's go, man.
Do this. But yeah, those are all radical Republicans. They're the founders of the Republican Party. Originally, the Republican Party were all radicals, but that changed by 1860. So within the decade, moderates took over, and of course within a century, a whole bunch of other folks took over. Right. We're gonna make the right at the light. Get on the freeway.
Stop it right now.
Yeah, so Senator but Zachariah Chandler, another Detroit radical Republican and founder of the Republican Party, is also buried in Elmwood Cemetery. He's one of the people who violated the gentleman's rule, the gentleman agreement of not bringing up slavery on the House floor. The other person to do that is Charles Sumner. And of course, Charles Sumner was almost beaten to death by Preston Brooks for talking about a member of Preston Brooks' family who were slave owners on the House floor. We got Fannie up. All right, so up here, you're looking at if you look at the screen, Fannie Richards. Her family moved from Virginia in 1850. So they are leaving Virginia, the black family leaving Virginia in 1850. So we can pretty much figure out what they're doing, what's happening. Black family leaving Virginia, coming to Detroit in 1850. What's happening here? Anybody? Take a guess. Yep. Oh yeah, running away on the Underground Railroad, maybe. Well, that's what I wanted you to say, but that's not what you're doing. This is a wealthy black family. So they are fleeing the black codes that are being passed in Virginia after the uprising led by Nat Turner. Nat Turner, by the time he leads his rebellion, he's a free black man. He grew up in slavery, but he's free in 1831 when he leads his rebellion. And now Virginia is passing draconian law after draconian law aimed at free black people. We already know what they're doing to enslaved black people. But now they're saying that free black people can't own land. Now they're saying free black people can't get educated, can't learn how to read and write. Now they're saying that free black people can't meet with 5 of them without a white person present. So they're restricting the freedom of free black people, and free black people are leaving Virginia in droves. The Richards family leaves in 1850, and Fanny's 10 years old. She comes here to the city of Detroit. Her family joins Second Baptist Church, which is the station on the Underground Railroad, the oldest black church in the city of Detroit and in the state of Michigan. So her family is a member of the Underground Railroad Church. She continues her education there. That's where the school is. And she goes over to Canada to increase her education. And then she goes over to Germany to increase it even further. She learns in Germany and comes back to Detroit in 1863 and brings kindergarten to the state of Michigan. She learned it in Germany and brought it to the state of Michigan. That's how Michigan got kindergarten. Because that black woman went to Germany and learned it and brought it to the state of Michigan. She will teach at colored school number 2. So we're clear that Jim Crow schools already exist in the 1800s in Detroit. And she leads a lawsuit to overturn segregation in Detroit public schools because the schools, of course, are unequal. The resources are unequal. And that lawsuit goes to the Michigan Supreme Court in 1869, 85 years before Brown versus Board of Education. And that lawsuit will overturn segregation in the state of Michigan in schools. And so she teaches at the first integrated public school in Michigan's history, or in Detroit's history, Everett Elementary. Altogether, she taught for 50 years in the city of Detroit.